Hi, my name is Xander Griffith, and I am a felt artist.
The title of this show is called Out There, and why you think your work might have been chosen with that sort of out there theme.
It could be because the way I'm doing felt is kind of out there. I mean, the technique is called quilling, which typically you just see in like paper artists, predominantly. I'm sure there's other people doing other ways of doing it, but I don't really know that many or of any other people doing felt in the quilling style that I'm doing. So it's trying to push the boundaries of felt when everyone's just like, oh, what is that made out of? And I'm like, oh, it's just felt, just regular felt. And they're like, what? How are you getting those images from that? And I'm like, it's just, patience, time, hot glue, and stuff like that. So that's kind of out there. And I guess just the themes that I like to play with is a lot of mythology and kind of taking animals to a different, plane where like empowerment and just being a little more magical than that's how I usually view animals, and trying to get other people on the same page, sort of.
So can you tell me a little bit more about quilling? Is that the process of rolling it?
Yeah, so like kind of taking a strip and then putting it on its side and then gluing it in some way.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And a lot of paper quillers will use a lot of like negative space to kind of show their images and everything, and I've never really been one for that. I want to kind of pack as much stuff in as possible and try to get it nice and tight. And play around with different depths, try to hide images, try to make it a little bit more fun. My main goal in everything that I'm doing is sort of, I want it to be appealing from like a 1-year-old to a 100-year-old. I want to hit everyone to at least say like, oh, that's pretty. It doesn't have to be this life-changing experience of like, I'm redefined by birds because I saw this. It's just like, yeah, I like that. That's nice, I want everyone to say that.
What hits me first when I look at your work is the energy that comes off your work. Like, it's just clear that it's pulsating energy, and that all the different pieces that are making up the whole play a part in this energy that you're creating, and with color and with the design and everything. And also, I think with this felt process, this quilling, and also the individual pieces, I think because they're all individual pieces that fit together as a whole, they stand out separately too, which I think creates that energy.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when you're trying to work in a very busy area. My first big break was with the Portland airport, and trying to get people's attention is difficult. If you're getting like 1 in 10, then you're doing a pretty good job. So my goal is to sort of like bash them over the head with as much color and brightness just to get people's attention, because sometimes that's just what it takes nowadays, because everyone's just so busy or on their phone or just out of it, that you kind of really have to grab them, and then hiding more stuff and making it more visually pleasing so that it's not just like a one and done kind of thing, but just trying to grab as much attention as possible, I guess.
And it appears nature plays a really big role in your work.
It's pretty much all I do. I don't know. I've never really enjoyed I feel like there's a timelessness to nature and animals and things that I feel like you don't really get in certain other, at least the way I tell a story. I've always just enjoyed those things. And it's always magical. I don't know. And I feel like there's so many different ways to show a mountain, whereas a building just always just feels like a building. And I've never really done people either. Not that I don't like people, but I don't know. I find animals.
So would you say that using nature and animals is your way of telling a story?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I think that's my best way of telling a story, or conveying some kind of movement or emotion, with those animals, just because they're so powerful, usually, And
you being inspired perhaps by these animals and nature and things that you see and how to express those, but also that you want to inspire people by your work.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about where I lived. I'm from the Southwest originally, and then moving up here, and if you can't get inspired by the Pacific Northwest, you're just not looking at it. So, I mean, it's also just kind of as being an outsider and wanting to experience this place, and just everything just feeling so rich and just so incredibly like gifts always. Each time I go outside, it's like, oh my gosh, look at that tree. Let's do that.
So tell me a little bit about your process.
Usually it'll be a picture, or I'll just be Googling nonstop trying to find some kind of inspiration for it. Usually it will start with just a color. You know, if the last picture was a lot of green, it's like, all right, let's try to do orange. And so most of them are sort of like responses from the last one, just like, oh, let's just do something different, and let's just kind of keep trying to push it, because you don't want to get stuck into a rut where you're just doing the same thing, you know, which there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah. So the work that you've delivered for this show, the pieces are quite large overall. There's, you know, it's different sizes, but there's some large pieces in there. So how long does it take you to do a piece like?
So there's a Sun Jaguar one, which is like an old, very old story sort of about this Sun Jaguar that would battle the underworld at night to claim the right to take the sun and everything. That one I think took like a month, and that's, you know, a lot of just sitting there and just doing the work, and people are like, oh, it's so meditative, and it is, and you know, in its basic form, but it's very repetitive and just putting in, you know, the work and everything.
Every day? Or?
Yeah, every day. Big days, very big days, very big days. But I mean, that's like, to do it the way that I think is pretty, it just demands that much time.
Do you work on one piece at a time, or do you have multiple pieces going?
No, I don't have very good multitasking.
Yeah.
And I've tried it before, where I'll be like, okay, I'll do 2 commissions simultaneously, and it's just they both kind of flounder a bit, because I'm very one. But usually while I'm in the end process of the first one, like, I know a picture is really good because I'm already starting that second one, and like, I'll make that canvas and I'm kind of staring at it while I'm finishing this one. And so when they start bleeding and just flowing into one another, that's when I know I'm in a good. When I can't figure out the next one, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not doing this one right. Like, there's probably something subconscious that's just not getting it.
Yeah. So tell me about your studio. It's in your home?
Yeah, I finally have a room after many years of just doing it out of my bedroom. I didn't go to school for art. I didn't really think I was going to be an artist in any kind of capacity. It just sort of kept building and building and building. And one day I'm making this 8-foot tree in this studio apartment. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I got to make a big tree. I don't know. It just needs to happen. And that ended up going to the airport and selling to OSU. So it was this big journey. But in the beginning, everyone was just kind of like, what are you feeling all right? Are you having a mental breakdown? I'm like, no, I need to make an 8-foot tree that's, 4 foot wide in a 200 square foot studio living room. But yeah.
So now you're in a studio space.
Now I have a nice studio space with, everything set up pretty nicely. And so I've got one corner of the room is probably like 75 bolts, kind of, rainbow-like. And then I've got these like IKEA drawers that have like my strips of felt that, just didn't get used for something. And then I'll have another section that's like small panels that I cut with, and then another section that has like circles that just get left over. There's a lot of leftover pieces. There's just a lot where you're just, I'll just try to make as much as I can, thinking like, oh, this is gonna work for this, and then I'll spend 3 days just making a big pile. Yeah. And then I get to it, and it's like, oh, that doesn't work. All right, let's store those. And so it's just a lot of storing and just,
So you were not planning to be an artist?
No, I wanted to be a writer. That was my main goal, and then kind of fell out of that, and then met my girlfriend, and we just started doing all these little projects, making puzzles and all these little things. And then one day I was like, oh, I want to make my own puzzle one day. And she's like, I don't know, like, learn how to graphic design. I'm like, I hate computers. And then it just sort of snowballed and turned into what it is now. Found felt, yeah. And it's hard to kind of pinpoint where it really took a turn. I guess when I started buying bolts is when it got serious, but I was just buying little sheets, and I was too nervous to actually cut anything because I'd never used a rotary cutter, so I had my girlfriend do all my cutting for me, and she would get so annoyed. She's like, stop, just do it yourself. I'm like, I don't know how to cut. She's very crafty.
So wow, and so now you're a full-time artist.
Yeah, I was very blessed. The airport was a massive thing. There was, so many people, and like in the first week, I was starting to get commissions for the first time, and it was just like, and it just kind of kept going. COVID kind of changed things, as every fiber artist on the planet no doubt feels, where if it can't be sanitized, then it's not safe, and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Do you put anything on your finished work that allows it to sort of preserves it for a longer period of time or anything?
I mean, I haven't really noticed anything too intense from like as far as like fading or anything.
Yeah.
I use predominantly acrylic, which is so very vibrant and has a much longer shelf life
Yeah.
than say, rayon or something like that. But they're very durable, which is really, really, really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, get a little vacuum cleaner.
And I really like the 2D effect, it coming off the canvas and just the undulate. It adds to the energy, but also, like you say, to the storyline and like, oh, look, just brings it to life. It's really,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. It's really great.